Oh yeah, that's right. Your eyes are not deceiving you. This is How to Draw Manga by Katie Coop. If you don't know what this book is, you've been living in the dark ages. This book is iconic. This book is single-handedly responsible for launching a million people into their anime phase. If it was even a phase. Sometimes it's a lifelong commitment. This book was published in 2002. I got it from a Scholastic book order, if I remember correctly, although I did get rid of it at some point. I don't know when. I know I hung on to it for a long time because I've kept a lot of my old How to Draw books from when I was a kid, but this one somehow, it was just no longer in my possession, so I had to order this one off eBay. But boy, am I glad I did. Just, oh God, I spent so much time drawing from this book. I don't know if there's a single illustration in this book that I didn't try drawing. I've drawn all of them. This book was made by Katie Coop, and she was 16 years old at the time she made this, which is just incredible. I always looked up to her because I thought, oh my God, she's only 16, but her art's so good. She has a book published. I just looked up to her so much, and this is what got me into drawing anime when I was younger. So it was published in 2002. Which means I was 11 turning 12. I don't know what month it came out, and I don't know when I got it. I don't know if it was brand new when I got it or not. But I was around that 12-year-old age, 12 to 13, when I got this book. God, just looking at them all. Oh my God. This one always really stood out to me. I loved this one here. So I figured, why not try to recreate some of the drawings from this book, follow a tutorial or two, and just go at it. Relive the good old days. The twist, though, is that I'm going to draw them in my current style, so they're not going to look the same as they do in the book. But I think that'll be very interesting. Also, oh, by the way, this one, so iconic to me. Okay. Also, I do still have some of the drawings that I did way back then. Not all of them. Most of them are long gone. They've been lost, but I still have some of them. So I have this bad boy right here. And first thing when you open it, stuff from that book. So these drawings are from August 2003. So I would have been 12 at the time, and I would have been 13 in October. So 12 going on 13. Here we go. Look at it. Look at it. There's another version of this with the background too. Where is it? Right there. That's the full version. And here's my rendition next to it. So I feel like I definitely need to redraw this one. This is one of the ones I'm going to draw today. This one is based off of this one. I did change a few things up, like the hairstyle's a bit different, and I didn't do the gloves. The colors are different, but it's pretty much the same thing. And where's this one from? There is the bandana guy at the beginning, where it's just his head, but is there that one? I know I tweaked the clothing at the very least. Oh, it's this one. And there is a bit more. This next page, this one I made up on my own, but it was based off of the knowledge I had gained from this book. And I did a spread here, which is based off of the back of the book. There's this page all about atmosphere, and so I just redid it in my own way. And what else do we have? We've got the Chibi! I really want to redo this one too. I don't draw in Chibi style as much anymore. Like my current style, I don't know if I've ever done it as a Chibi character, so we'll see how that turns out. But there's the comparison. And then I threw in this blank sheet here because it was definitely inspired by this book. Like I can tell looking at the faces and stuff. But I was just trying to design my own character. So I thought I would show that as well. So I guess let's jump into this. There's so many I want to do. I don't have time to do them all, but I'll spend a couple days doing a handful of them. Okay, so we're going to start with the basic face because why not? And to me, it's one of the more iconic pictures in the book. So I'm just following the steps in the similar order that they did. So starting with the circle, then doing guidelines, even though that's how I normally draw a face anyway. Although I tried really hard to do just like they did, at least for this one. So I had to do the outline of the eyes next, and then the interior of the eyes, stuff like that. But like I said before, I'm doing it in my own style. So it's kind of tough because how much do you follow the tutorial when you're not doing it the same way? It's kind of tough. I'm like, well, am I following it or am I just drawing it myself. Who knows? I was also a little unsure for the style for the guy's face because I mostly draw female characters. And a lot of times when I do draw male characters, they're for the Hot Guy series, and so they look more realistic, like they're more of a semi-realistic style as opposed to the big cartoony eyes I do for my female characters. Although I have drawn a few males this way before too, but that was a bit of a challenge. I'm like, is this my style, or am I being subconsciously influenced by the tutorial? And for example, his hair. The way his hair bulges out from under his bandana and has the big spiky chunks, I don't typically draw hair that way. Like I do chunky hair, but it was just so anime the way the bangs flew out, and I was like, well, it has to look like the same drawing, so I have to do the bangs that way. Although I did tone them down a little bit. I erased them and redrew them because I was like, okay, let's compromise. So it's kind of my style, kind of the style from the book for the hair. Even stuff like the way the bandana is dangling down, I thought, okay, do I do the same diamond shape, or would I draw it differently? No, I'd probably do it kind of like that. Well, how much like that? And then you start just getting in your head. So yeah, I just did the bandana pretty much the same way it's done in the book. Here's where I fixed up his hair, and I added a few little blushies because they did add some diagonal lines across the nose, so I kind of did that, although when I colored, I just used a pale pink. What was I watching? Who knows? Okay, now I'm taking a Tuscan red Prismacolor pencil and I'm using that for the outlines. I was really torn with this one. Did I want to use inks or not? Because they use inks in the book, and I did use inks for a different illustration you'll see later because I did a total of 4 different ones for this video. But for this one, I thought, you know what? No, I usually use pencils for the outlines, so that's what I'm going to use for the outlines, just to stay true to it being her drawing but in my style. So I just outlined it all and traced it onto my cardstock using my light box as I usually do. And I also used some black, which it was a Faber-Castell one for the black. Yeah, I just grabbed whatever pencil's closest to me. That was the closest one. So yeah, I like to use black for things like the eyes because I like them to be really dark since I shade the top of the eyes dark, so it's weird if it's a pale outline. And also I add a bit of black in the deepest shadows, like for example between the spikes of the hair, stuff like that. Just wherever there's darker color, I'll add a darker outline. So now I'm coloring it in with my Copics, which again, not the same as the book because she uses pencil crayons, but again, I typically use Copic markers, so I wanted that comparison because that's how I do it. Because another point of this is to compare to my old artwork to see my improvement, even though this is not one of the ones I have a copy of now, but you'll see with some other ones. I recreated some of the ones that I did draw in my childhood. Well, I did draw this one, but I don't have it anymore. I only have a few illustrations that are in that sketchbook. So once I was at the coloring stage, I wasn't really following the way she shaded hers. I shaded it the same way I always would shade mine. I just copied the same colors, like similar skin tone, red bandana, the same brown hair, that sort of thing. But I didn't look at like, oh, well, how did she do the highlights in the hair? I'm going to do mine like that because her coloring style has a lot of areas that are left white, and I don't typically color that way. So I stayed more true to how I would color it. The drawing in the book had really dark roots, so I made sure to also do that. It's almost like he had his hair bleached and therefore his roots are super dark. That's how I imagined it anyway. So I made sure to include that. I don't know why my voice suddenly got really high-pitched. By the way, I hope you guys enjoy these real-time clips. I personally love videos with real-time clips. I'm much more invested in the video, and I actually really pay attention when it's like that. I do have to speed up a little bits, like I sped up coloring his eyes. Just little bits here and there, but man, I love real-time clips. They're so satisfying to watch compared to something that's super sped up. And yeah, you don't see every single stroke, but you don't really need to. I like it this way. I know whenever I do this, some people say they miss the speed paints, but I love it so much. I like watching videos like this, so I want to incorporate more of that into my videos wherever I can. It's like visual ASMR to me. It just looks so good. Anyway, yeah, using some dark reds now to shade his bandana. I feel like I don't have a whole lot else to say about this guy here. He is, however, one of my favorite ones I did. He's in the top 2 faves of this video out of the 4. One thing I also decided to do is add freckles on his cheeks, which you'll see in a little bit, because those dashes that Katie used for the blush on the face, yeah, I added a little bit of pink, just a hint of pink on the cheeks, but I felt like I also wanted the freckles just to make it feel a little bit more like her drawing. So that's what I did, and that's what it looks like. And there's the comparison between the two. So now for the next one, I'm doing the Chibi, which, like I said before, it's a bit weird because I don't normally draw a Chibi style. I do sometimes for my buttons, but those end up looking like this and this, which is completely different. They're like little skinny bodies with spaghetti noodle arms and legs, and I didn't want to draw in that style because to me that's too different from her book, and why even follow the tutorial if I'm going to make it that different. So I tried to follow her body shape somewhat. Like I drew the shoes really big initially for the rough outlines, and then I thought, okay, well, let's do something kind of in between because I would never draw them quite that big, but we'll still keep them big. So I was keeping some elements, but changing it up too. Like the hands she drew were just round balls, and I added actual fingers to it because that's how I would do it. The face, though, I wasn't sure about. I'm like, okay, how do I make this my style, but also a Chibi character? So I pretty much did it the same as I always would, except the eyes are a bit bigger, and then the nose is more simple. That's really the only difference. And then, of course, the proportion of the head to the body is different. And this one I also used pencils for the outline because I felt it was appropriate for this one, and then colored it in. And I actually screwed up the outlines. I don't know if you notice or can tell, but he's supposed to be wearing a long sleeve shirt under his t-shirt. And I did that around the belly area, but for some reason when I was outlining it, I totally missed that around the line by his wrist and up by his neckline. So I had to add that in later. So I realized, oops, I screwed this up. But I had already colored his arms a peachy color. And so if I put green on top of that and then colored the belly portion green, they wouldn't be the same shade of green, right? So I ended up coloring his belly the skin color on purpose and then putting the green on top. I'm getting a little ahead of myself because we're not at that point in the video yet, but I knew it'd take me a while to talk about it, so I brought it up early. The hair in this one is a little more orangey compared to the original two. I maybe could have made it a little more red. I did get redder on the tips, but it still doesn't quite match Katie's drawing, so I probably should have made that a bit more red. So about here is when I realized I screwed up the shirt and I didn't do it how it looks in the book. So I had to fix it, like I said, by just drawing it in. Luckily the outlines were pencil. They don't fully erase. They don't erase well at all, but you can kind of tweak things. I didn't want to just add a line on the wrist, right? The shirt has a thickness, so it needs to bulge out around the wrist. So yeah, I just kind of cheated it. I made it work, and you can't even tell really that I did it that way. So yeah. And then just colored his jeans, his shoes, and whatnot. These clips are sped up, by the way, because I am doing 4 drawings in one video. So I was like, okay, we'll do 2 with real-time clips and 2 that are sped up. So the Chibi's one of the sped up ones. And that's what he ended up looking like. And then here's the comparison to my original one that I did back in 2003. So yeah, that's very interesting. I like those side-by-sides with old artwork, especially really old stuff like that, because I don't have a lot of my really old artwork. So that's fun. So next we're doing this guy. The guy with the spiky hair, the bandana, holding his hand up with his baton. To me, that's one of the most iconic drawings in this book, at least for me. And so this was my attempt at it. And this is probably the weakest illustration in this whole video. It's not my best work, but you know, it's still fun to see the comparison. I mostly don't like how big I made his head, because the heads are easy to make too big, because for my style, I just have big heads. But when I did this guy, I was gonna do the more semi-realistic proportions that I do for example, the hot guy videos. So if I go by those standards, the head's too big. And it's easy to do that because when you first draw the circle for the head, it might look okay, or maybe only slightly too big. But then once you add the bulk of the hair or any hat they're wearing, in this case the bandana, once you add all that extra bulk, it makes the head much larger. So when in doubt, draw the head a little small, because it's gonna get bigger as you keep going. So that's the main thing I don't like about this one. But other than that, I do like it. It was really fun drawing all the straps and stuff and recreating her illustration. The hair, though, I didn't know what to do with it, because Again, super anime looking, huge long spikes. I don't typically draw art that looks like that, but I had to do it. If I want it to look like the dude from the book, I gotta do it. So I had to do the big crazy spikes. Even things like the bandana, I'm like, well, would I draw it sticking out like that? Is the bandana tied kind of on the side of the back of his head? Because you wouldn't see the knot if it was in the middle. And would I draw it flaring out in this particular way? I don't know, but I was just trying to find that balance between how would I do it, but also got to make it look like the drawing in the book. Because this drawing's just so iconic. I need it to actually look like it. Even for the hair, I made the highlights similar to how she did it. So on the right-hand side of the drawing, there's a highlight all down the strand of hair and then a zigzag highlight within that. So hers do go lighter than mine, like the highlights are a little more extreme, but I had to do it the same way. I just had to. I think hers overall has a lot more highlights than mine, and that kind of looks better on hers. Like I think the lighting looks better on her drawing than on mine. But like I keep saying, I don't typically do the super bright highlights, so trying to also stay true to my shading methods. Coloring in the bandana, I thought my B90s would be too desaturated. They're my favorite blues to use to shade stuff in, but I thought, okay, no, that's too desaturated. Let's go with the B0s. And then I looked at the reference again, and I was like, no, actually it is closer to the B90s, so I had to go in and color on top with the B90s to tone it down a little bit. And that's the same color of blue used for the vest. So I went in, I did it the same way where I used a combination of both blue families so that it would match the bandana instead of just using the B90s. This one was really fun to color because of the light source, because on hers it's kind of like a spotlight is shining on the guy. If you look at the brick version with the brick background, you can see the spotlight around him. And so it makes a lot of shadows, especially because there's lots of straps and things. It just made it fun. This one was a fun one to do. Even though it's not my favorite in terms of how it turned out, it was a good time. And that's what matters. All I gotta do is go into Photoshop and use a liquefy tool on his head. Then we're good to go. Just shrink it down a bit and then it's perfect. Well, maybe not perfect, but close enough. What's also fun is just the nostalgic feelings, the nostalgic vibes. This book just had such a huge impact on me growing up, and recreating the art from it now, it makes me giddy. Even just watching back on this while I'm editing, I'm getting giddy over it. I'm like, oh my god, it's the Katie Coop drawing. I just idolized her so much back then, and so I am feeling like a fangirl. I'm fangirling a little here. Now for my version, I decided to do the backgroundless version, although it is slightly different because I noticed they cut out the what are they called? The lightning bolt things in the version without the background, when they just got photoshopped out. And so I did add those, but I did not do the brick background because I just did not want to. So there's the comparison with the non-brick background version and then the brick background version. That's a lot of bees. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Woohoo! So now for the last one, I wanted to do a drawing of a female because I felt like not all of them were very indicative of my style. Like the Chibi one and the guy I just did, I was like, okay, well, that's not a good representation of what I normally draw. So I just had to get a girl in there. And because I wanted to do one more, I was squeezing a fourth drawing in here. So I just picked that girl with the brown hair because I thought she was cute and just went at it. Oh, I didn't mention it for the last one, but the last one I did, I used inks for the outlines just because there was a lot of detail and I didn't want to smudge the pencil too much, and just to give one a try with inks since that's the way Katie does it in the books. Anyway, for this one, I'm back to the pencil outlines, but also I'm sketching directly on the cardstock, so I was trying to sketch quite cleanly because the pencil doesn't erase well. So I was trying to keep it clean. It's a basic face, so it shouldn't be too hard. And then I was going to color directly on top of this, which I did. So yeah, this basic face here is more similar to how I would typically draw a character. So now for the hair, I had to keep it the same style. That's my rule, is it's got to be the same style. Like the bangs being split in the middle like that and then curving outwards is not my favorite look, but I had to do it. It gives me Sailor Moon vibes though. I always think of Sailor Moon when there's hair like that. Just add a little tiara, then we're all set. One thing I love though about this illustration, which is why I picked it, is because her hair is longer in the front and then it's shorter in the back. And I don't know if it's meant to actually be dyed a different color underneath or if those are just the browns that Katie chose to shade it. In my mind, it's dyed a different color, just like the underside of her hair. You know, people do that sometimes. I don't know. In my mind, that's the way it is. I used the exact same skin colors for all 4 drawings because that's what most closely matched hers. It's the E50s. So to use E50, E51, and then in the shadows use E11 and E13. And for rosy cheeks, I used R20, and then to blend them out, I used R00, but that marker is pretty much dead, so I'll use it a little bit and then switch to something else. I think it was R11, just to help blend it into the skin. I actually really like the rosy cheeks on this one. I think that's part of the reason why this is my favorite, because it reminds me of my bubbly art. I think because I drew it so large, but also the eyes, the line under the eyes, making them look smiley even though it's a different style of eye, and just the nice rosy cheeks. And I think I may have used the same colors for both. I'm not sure. It's hard to remember. But I always love the way the face looks on that art, and this one reminds me of that one, so that's probably why I really like it. So I mentioned the Hawkeye videos a couple times in this video so far, and I kind of want to retire that series in a sense where I'm still going to do similar things but not call it a Hawkeye series and make them a little less lewd. I know there's people out there who really like them, but they're just maybe a little too lewd, you know? I don't know. I just feel like I want to tone it down a little bit. I could still do similar things, but maybe be like, oh, drawing such and such cartoon character in my style, or wording it something like that, or drawing this character but as a female, like gender bending, or like there's so many things you could do, right? And just because I already brought this up how I want to expand it, but I think I'm just gonna drop the lewdiness altogether. Like, yeah, I could draw someone maybe with like their shirt partially open or something, but not like nothing extreme, not like naked Squidward like I've done. I just get uncomfortable when I refer people to my channel and I have the hot guy videos up there. It's like really weird. Like my accountant the other day was like, oh, I checked out your channel, and I was like, oh my god, no. Just stuff like that. Plus, my Hawkeye videos have been getting demonetized, and they're some of my least viewed videos, which tells me they're the least popular with you guys. So I'm sure most of you will not care if those go away or get modified. Basically, all the signs are pointing towards not doing that anymore. But that is just the way of my channel. Sometimes series die, like Princessify, and sometimes I don't end up doing things as a series even though I originally planned on it because maybe the idea wasn't popular or I'm just no longer interested. So, goodbye, Hot Guy series! The Santa one, I was working on it over Christmas holidays at my in-laws' house, and that was just so awkward because I didn't want anyone to look at it. But at the same time, they knew what I was drawing, and so it was just like, the shame. Also, one time, I was at a jewelry store, and the guy working there, I don't know how we got on this topic, but he found out I do YouTube videos, I found out he does photography, and we exchanged business cards, and it was all fine and dandy. And then I left the jewelry store, and I remembered that my most recent upload was the Waluigi as a hot guy, and I was like, no. And then I'm like, well, Baylee, if this is not the brand you want to put out there, then why are you putting it out there? Oh, oy. Although one of my favorite things to come from that series was the print of Waluigi was at Anime North, and there were these 2 cosplayers, the Waluigi brothers, and I showed them the art, and they were like, wow, and like looking at it, pinching the nips, all kinds of stuff. That was hilarious. That made it all worth it. So back to the illustration. I'm just finishing it up here by coloring in her eyes, a nice blue, blending it out. And that is pretty much it. Oh, and I used some black pencil to darken the tops of it. But that is what it looks like. It's so cute. I'm just so glad I squeezed in 1 extra drawing because I was going to do 3 originally. So yay, I'm glad I squeezed that one in because I really like it. And then there's the comparison with the original. Yay! And here are all the drawings. Thank you, Katie Coop, for being such a huge inspiration to so many people, for being an absolute legend. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.